Captain Ishida gripped the arms of her chair, knuckles white, as the Leviathan-class dreadnought shuddered under the barrage of energy weapons. Alarms blared, crew members shouted orders, but through the chaos, she kept her gaze fixed on the main viewscreen. Shields down to 40% and falling. Her executive officer reported. We can't take much more of this. Ishida set her jaw. Helm, evasive maneuvers. Get us out of their firing range. The massive ship groaned as it banked hard, but the enemy vessels pursued relentlessly, their disruptor beams lancing out. Explosions rocked the Leviathan, and Ishida braced herself against the impact. Damage control teams to the port side. We've lost 2 secondary reactors. Ishida glanced at the tactical display, her mind racing. The Crixan fleet outmatched them in numbers and firepower. If they didn't break free soon, the Leviathan would be torn apart. Captain, we have an incoming transmission from the Crixan flagship, the communications officer announced. Ishida nodded. On screen. The imposing figure of the Crixan admiral appeared, his reptilian features twisted in a sneer. Surrender your vessel, human. Your species has meddled in our affairs for the last time. Ishida straightened in her chair, defiance burning in her eyes. I will never surrender to your kind. Humanity will not bow to your tyranny. The Crixan admiral's eyes narrowed. Then you will be destroyed, along with your pathetic race. The transmission cut off, and Ishida turned to her crew. All hands, prepare for a jump to warp. We're getting out of here. But Captain, we don't have enough power to make a full distance jump, the navigator protested. We don't need to, Ishida said, a grim determination in her voice. Set a course for the temporal rift. We're going to use it to escape. The navigator's eyes widened. The temporal rift? But the risks. I'm well aware of the risks, Ishida interrupted. But it's our only chance. Engage the warp drive, maximum thrust. The Leviathan's engines roared to life, and the massive ship lurched forward, racing towards the swirling vortex of the temporal rift. The Crixan ships pursued, their weapons battering the beleaguered dreadnought. Ishida braced herself as the Leviathan plunged into the rift, the fabric of space-time distorting around them. The bridge crew held on for dear life as the ship was buffeted by the turbulent energies. We're through the rift, Captain, the navigator called out. But we're off course. I'm detecting an unknown stellar system. And, my God, the gravity readings air. Before the navigator could finish, a blinding flash of light filled the bridge, and the Leviathan shuddered violently. Ishida gripped the arms of her chair, her heart pounding. They had escaped the Crixan fleet, but at what cost? Ishida coughed, the acrid smell of ozone and burned circuitry filling her lungs. She blinked, her vision slowly clearing as the bridge lights flickered back to life. Report, she barked, her voice hoarse. Shields are down, multiple systems are offline, the executive officer replied, his face grim. We're venting atmosphere on decks 4 through 7. Damage control teams are responding. But he trailed off, and Ishida followed his gaze to the main viewscreen. Outside, the familiar starfield had been replaced by an otherworldly sight, a massive, shimmering orb that seemed to pulse with an ethereal energy. What is that? Ishida breathed, her eyes wide with awe and trepidation. Unknown, Captain, the navigator replied, his fingers flying across his console. But the gravity readings are off the scale. We're being pulled in. Ishida gripped the arms of her chair as the Leviathan was drawn inexorably towards the colossal anomaly. Engines, full reverse thrust. We can't afford to be pulled in. The crew members strained at their stations, but the ship's systems were barely responding. Ishida watched helplessly as the Leviathan was drawn closer and closer to the mysterious orb. Captain, we're losing the battle against the gravity well, the navigator reported, his voice tinged with fear. We're going to be pulled in. Ishida clenched her jaw, her mind racing. All hands, brace for impact, she ordered. Helm, divert all available power to the forward shields. The Leviathan shuddered as it was enveloped by the anomaly's gravitational field, the hull groaning under the strain. Ishida braced herself as the ship was sucked into the pulsing orb, the viewscreen filled with a blinding light. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, with a thunderous roar, the Leviathan emerged on the other side, hurtling through an alien landscape unlike anything Ishida had ever seen. "Where are we?" she demanded, her eyes scanning the unfamiliar star systems. The navigator's fingers flew across his console, his face a mask of concentration. I'm not sure, Captain. The star patterns don't match any known navigational charts. We're in uncharted space, far beyond the boundaries of the known galaxy. Ishida felt a chill run down her spine. Then we're truly lost, she murmured, her heart sinking. Hail the fleet. See if we can establish contact. We need to find a way back home. As the crew scrambled to send a distress signal, Ishida gazed out at the strange, unfamiliar stars. They had escaped the Crixan onslaught. But at what cost? Where were they, and how would they ever find their way back? The bridge was deathly silent as the crew waited for a response to their distress signal. Ishida paced back and forth, her mind racing. They were stranded, lost in uncharted space, with no idea how to return home. "Any luck on the Hales, Lieutenant?" she asked, her voice tense. The communications officer shook his head. "No response, Captain. It's as if the entire fleet has disappeared." Ishida clenched her fists, frustration and worry warring within her. "Keep trying. There has to be someone out there who can hear us." She turned to the navigator, her gaze intense. "What can you tell me about our current position?" The navigator's fingers danced across his console, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Based on the star patterns and our trajectory through the temporal rift, I believe we've been transported to a completely different region of the galaxy. One that's completely unfamiliar to us." Ishida's heart sank. "How far off course are we?" "Impossible to say for certain, but—" The navigator paused, his expression grave. "If my calculations are correct, we could be tens of thousands of light years from home." The bridge erupted in murmurs of disbelief and panic. Ishida held up a hand, silencing the crew. "Remain calm, everyone," she said, her voice steady. "We've faced dire situations before, and we've always prevailed. We will find a way back." She turned to the executive officer, her gaze unwavering. "Initiate a full systems diagnostic. I want to know the extent of the damage and what resources we have available. We'll need to make repairs and resupply as soon as possible." The executive officer nodded, already barking orders to the crew. Ishida turned her attention to the viewscreen, her brow furrowed in thought. "Where are we, and what lies in wait for us in this unknown region of space?" she murmured, almost to herself. "Whatever challenges we face, we must be prepared to meet them head-on." She clenched her jaw, determination burning in her eyes. "For the sake of our crew and our people, we cannot fail." The Leviathan's crew worked tirelessly, their faces etched with exhaustion as they toiled to repair the battered systems. Ishida paced the bridge, her mind consumed by the enormity of their predicament. "Status report," she demanded, her voice sharp. The executive officer stepped forward, a data pad in hand. "We've managed to restore most primary systems, but the damage to the warp drive is extensive. It'll take weeks to fully repair, and even then, we won't have enough power to make the return trip." Ishida's jaw tightened. "And our supplies?" "Dwindling," the executive officer replied grimly. "We have enough food and fuel to last a few months at most, but without a way to resupply, we'll eventually run out." Ishida's gaze swept across the bridge, taking in the weary faces of her crew. "We have to find a way to get back home. Our people need us." The navigator spoke up, his voice hesitant. "Captain, I've been analyzing the star charts, and I believe I've identified a nearby system that may have the resources we need." "But—" Ishida raised a hand, silencing him. What? The navigators swallowed hard. The system is controlled by an alien race known as the Oxyloth. They're an aggressive, territorial species, and they've been known to attack any ships that enter their territory. Ishida's eyes narrowed. So we have no choice but to risk an encounter with them if we want to survive. The navigator nodded, his expression grim. I'm afraid so, Captain. Ishida turned to the executive officer. Assemble an away team. We'll need to make planetfall and secure the necessary supplies and repairs. But be prepared for a fight. The Oxyloth will not welcome us with open arms. The executive officer saluted. Aye, Captain. I'll have the team ready to depart within the hour. Ishida watched as the crew sprang into action, the sound of urgent voices and the hum of activity filling the bridge. She knew the risks they were about to face, but she also knew that they had no choice. Failure was not an option. We will make it home, she said, her voice low but resolute. Whatever it takes. The away team, led by the executive officer, disembarked from the Leviathan in a sleek shuttle, their weapons at the ready. Ishida watched from the bridge, her fingers drumming nervously on the armrest of her chair. Maintain a tight formation and keep your eyes peeled. The executive officer's voice crackled over the comm. We don't know what kind of reception we'll receive. Ishida leaned forward, her gaze fixed on the view screen as the shuttle descended towards the alien planet's surface. The landscape was a harsh, barren expanse of rocky outcroppings and sprawling canyons, and Ishida couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease. We're approaching the coordinates now, the executive officer reported. I see some kind of settlement in the distance, but no signs of activity. Ishida frowned. Be cautious. This could be a trap. The shuttle touched down, and the away team disembarked, their weapons at the ready. Ishida held her breath, her heart pounding as she watched them cautiously approach the settlement. No signs of life, the executive officer reported. We're moving in to investigate. Ishida's fingers clenched the armrests as the away team disappeared into the eerie silence of the alien outpost. Seconds ticked by, and then, Captain, we found something. The executive officer's voice crackled over the comm. It appears to be some kind of technology unlike anything we've ever seen. Ishida's brow furrowed. Describe it. It's a massive structure, like a platform or dais, with intricate patterns of glowing energy running across its surface. The executive officer replied, his voice tinged with awe. The power readings are off the scale. Ishida's heart raced. Could it be the source of energy or fuel? Possibly, the executive officer replied. But I hesitate to touch it without further analysis. The technology is unsettling. Ishida's gaze hardened. Noted. Proceed with caution, but if it can help us repair the Leviathan, we need to investigate further. Understood, Captain, the executive officer responded. Well. Suddenly, the comm crackled with static, and Ishida's blood ran cold. Executive officer, report, she demanded, but there was only silence. Ishida gripped the arms of her chair, her knuckles white. Helm, take us down. I'm going to find out what happened to my crew. The Leviathan shuttle raced towards the planet's surface, Ishida's jaw set in determination. As they approached the alien outpost, she could see no signs of the away team. Her heart pounded with worry and fear. Maintain a tight formation and be ready for anything, Ishida ordered, her voice stern. I won't lose any more of my crew. The shuttle touched down, and Ishida led the heavily armed security detail into the eerie silence of the outpost. Their footsteps echoed against the towering alien structures, and Ishida felt a chill run down her spine. Fan out and search for any signs of the away team, she commanded. And be on the lookout for that strange technology they reported. The security officers spread out, their weapons at the ready. Ishida pressed forward, her senses on high alert. As she rounded a corner, she froze, her breath catching in her throat. There, lying motionless on the ground, were the bodies of the away team. Ishida rushed to their side, her heart pounding. "What happened here?" she demanded, her voice shaking with a mixture of grief and rage. One of the officers, a young man named Ensign Takeda, groaned and opened his eyes. "Captain, it happened so fast. We were examining the platform, and then they came." Ishida gripped his shoulder, her eyes searching his face. "Who, Ensign, who did this?" Takeda's voice was barely a whisper. The Xyloth. They attacked us without warning. We never stood a chance." Ishida felt a surge of fury. "Where are they now?" Takeda's eyes widened. They took the others. I tried to stop them, but..." Ishida's heart sank, and she turned to the security team. "We have to find them, and we have to stop the Xyloth. They'll pay for this." The officers nodded, their faces grim with determination. Ishida led the way, her weapon raised and her senses on high alert. As they approached the strange platform, she couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. What had the away team discovered, and what other horrors might be waiting for them in this alien landscape? Ishida and the security team approached the enigmatic platform cautiously, their weapons at the ready. The air was thick with tension, and Ishida could feel the weight of her responsibility bearing down on her. "Spread out and secure the perimeter," she ordered, her voice low and steady. "I want eyes on every angle." The officers quickly fanned out, their movements precise and practiced. Ishida turned her attention to the towering structure before her, its surface pulsing with an unearthly energy. "Ensign Takeda, can you tell me anything else about what you and the away team discovered?" she asked, her gaze never leaving the platform. Takeda winced as he struggled to sit up, his face etched with pain. We were examining the platform when the Xyloth attacked. The energy readings were off the charts, but we couldn't determine its purpose. Then they came, like shadows in the night. They were too fast, too strong. We never stood a chance." Ishida's jaw tightened. "And you have no idea where they took the others?" Takeda shook his head, regret and fear clouding his features. "No, Captain. One moment, they were there, and the next, they were gone." Ishida's grip tightened on her weapon. "We'll find them, Ensign. I promise." She turned her attention back to the platform, her brow furrowed in concentration. Something about it drew her in, like a siren's call. Cautiously, she reached out a hand, her fingers brushing against the pulsing surface. Suddenly, the platform erupted in a blinding flash of light, and Ishida felt a surge of energy coursing through her veins. The world around her seemed to slow to a crawl, and she could hear the faint echo of voices, distant and distorted. "Captain." Takeda's voice cut through the haze, laced with panic. "What's happening?" Ishida opened her mouth to respond, but the words died on her lips as she felt a strange, tugging sensation. The platform was pulling her in, its energy enveloping her like a living thing. "Get back," she shouted, her voice barely audible over the roar of the energy. "It's some kind of trap." The security team opened fire, their weapons blazing, but the energy field seemed to absorb the blasts with ease. Ishida felt herself being drawn inexorably towards the platform, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and something else. As the world around her dissolved into a blur of light and sound, Ishida knew one thing with absolute certainty. Her life, and the fate of her crew, had just taken an unexpected and perilous turn. Ishida felt as if she were being pulled through a vortex of swirling energy, her senses overwhelmed by the dizzying sensations. Time seemed to lose all meaning, and she struggled to make sense of her surroundings. Suddenly, everything went dark, and Ishida found herself standing on a strange, unfamiliar world. The air was thick and heavy, and the sky was a deep, unnatural hue. Her security team was nowhere to be seen, and she felt a chill of dread run down her spine. "Where am I?" she murmured, her voice barely audible in the eerie silence. As she surveyed her strange new environment, a movement in the distance caught her eye. Cautiously, she made her way towards the source, her hand gripping her weapon tightly. What she saw next made her heart skip a beat. There, in the distance, were the members of her away team, imprisoned within a shimmering energy field. And standing guard were a group of towering, reptilian creatures, the Thyloth. Ishida's blood boiled with rage. "Let them go," she shouted, her voice echoing across the alien landscape. The Xyloth guards turned, their eyes narrowing as they fixed their gaze on Ishida. With a series of guttural growls, they began to advance, their clawed hands reaching for their own weapons. Ishida raised her weapon, her finger poised on the trigger. "I won't ask again. Release my crew or face the consequences." The Xyloth hesitated, their eyes scanning Ishida with a mixture of curiosity and hostility. Then, one of them stepped forward, its maw opening in a grotesque parody of a smile. Curious, it hissed, its voice a grating, reptilian rasp. "The human dares to challenge the might of the Xyloth." Ishida's grip on her weapon tightened. "I am Captain Ishida of the Federation starship Leviathan. My crew and I have come in peace, seeking only to resupply and make repairs. But you have attacked us and taken my people. I will not stand for it." The Xyloth guard let out a throaty chuckle. "Your pitiful vessel is no match for our power. And now, you have been brought before us to face the consequences of your meddling." Ishida's eyes narrowed. "Then so be it. But know this, humanity will not be cowed by your threats. We are a force to be reckoned with, and we will not rest until my crew is safely returned." The Xyloth guard's eyes narrowed, and it raised a clawed hand. "Then you will all perish, just as your kind will one day be extinguished from the galaxy." As the Xyloth closed in, Ishida steeled herself, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. She knew that the fate of her crew, and perhaps even the fate of humanity itself, rested on her shoulders. She would not back down, no matter the cost.